Women's role and status in ancient societies. Introduction. Women in ancient societies received cruel treatment. It is unfortunate that many ancient societies, especially those in third world countries, regarded them as second-class citizens. Therefore, they had to cope with social prejudice and did not enjoy basic human rights such as freedom of speech and association. Gender stereotypes in ancient societies affected their development and progress. Unfortunately, they could not rise against the injustices for fear of prosecution. The system of government in many ancient societies was patriarchal and did not involve women. Notably, the issues affecting them remained unaddressed because they did not have representatives in the local government or social institutions. From a historical perspective, the ancient societies did not address the plight of women in almost all aspects of life. Mesopotamia. The treatment, role, and status of women in ancient Mesopotamia were not different from the case in other ancient societies. The system was patriarchal, with the father being the family's head and the breadwinner. The woman's role was to bear and raise children. Girls were married off early, in fact, after puberty. Marriages were planned, thus, the girl had no freedom to choose her spouse. Wife inheritance was a common practice, especially if a woman's husband died early. Similarly, in an instance where a woman's husband fails in his responsibilities as a man, the groom's father would give her another husband, in many instances, her husband's brother. All the family's resources belonged to the man. China. Females in ancient Chinese society lived under outright oppression. Society treated them as the inferior gender throughout their lives. Their duties revolved around serving their husbands. The gender stereotypes did not allow them to become independent beings. The society expected every married woman to give birth to a son. Failure to do so would lead to ridicule. Polygamy was acceptable, especially if the first wife failed to bear a son. Marriage matters were quite sensitive in ancient Chinese society. The father chose a suitor for his daughter without consulting her. Sadly, a family would sell their daughters to serve rich families. However, they could not sell their sons to become servants. Education for a woman was rare in ancient China. Boys got the best educational support while girls had no chance to enroll even in basic education classes. Therefore, their intellectual capacity remained wanting. They did not have mentors or role models to imitate in education. While boys went to school, girls remained at home to attend to household chores such as cleaning and cooking. The only form of education they received was how to become good wives to their husbands and mothers to their children. India. The treatment, role, and status of women in ancient Indian society were not badly off when compared to other ancient societies. They enjoyed some rights as compared to women in other societies. They could work as bodyguards, a duty perceived as being menial. Additionally, they could access education and serve as political entities. They had representative posts in the local governments. However, polygamy was allowed, thus, a man could have more than one wife. Similarly, they could not do anything without seeking permission from their husbands. Greece. Women in ancient Greek society lived amid struggles. Equality between men and women was non-existent. They had no say in marriage, and they would serve as peasant laborers and slaves. In terms of education, boys would attend learning institutions to acquire formal education. On the other hand, girls would remain at home to attend to household chores. Society did not expect them to acquire much education because they had to serve their husbands and raise children. Marriage was an important rite of passage in the ancient Greek society. Being single was unheard of, thus, marriage was arranged by elders and parents. Women got married off during the teen age, that is, between 13 and 19 years. However, they would become acceptable wives only after they become mothers. Rome. Women in ancient Rome lived a difficult life. The gender stereotypes stigmatized her, thus, she had to conform to the social expectations. The man was the master who dictated everything to the woman. At no instance did they take the woman's opinion in whatever situation. Unfortunately, a woman was nothing more than just a slave. An unmarried woman could never secure a job. Therefore, they could only entertain people or become sex workers. A woman's chances of acquiring an education in ancient Roman society were minimal. In many cases, the parents and society were not ready to support them to continue with education. East Asia. The communities in ancient East Asia subjected women to oppression and outright exploitation. Women's roles were subordinative. The society expected a woman to respect her husband and serve him without question. They could not hold political posts and their duties revolved around the kitchen and childbearing. However, there are exclusive cases where some could serve as queens and empresses. The system was generally patriarchal in a larger part of East Asia. From a cultural perspective, the society expected women to submit to their husbands without question. Conclusion. A woman in the modern society differs from the one in the ancient society. Currently, a woman can access education with a lot of ease. Schools admit both male and female children. Similarly, higher learning institutions allow both male and female students to pursue courses of their choice. The Ministry of Education in many countries gives females a competitive advantage over males to help them catch up with social diversity. The efforts of the human rights groups have bred significant results. Currently, there are female scholars, engineers, pilots, corporate entities, leaders, and economic moguls. It is critical to note that even third-world countries have raised the standards of education for women in society. Although prejudice still exists, it cannot be compared to the case in ancient societies. The governments in many countries allow women to take part in politics and other high-profile posts. Therefore, there are female politicians, ambassadors, doctors, IT specialists, legal consultants, and heads of state. Government agencies reserve some positions for women. Therefore, some hold prestigious positions to address the plight of women in marginalized areas. The ancient Egyptian society was quite different from other ancient societies. It was quite similar to the modern society in some ways. For instance, women could own property and engage in economically viable activities.